Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Quest for Knowledge. Today we are going to discuss all the model paper 1 and 2 of business regulation. First question is define consideration. So, in simple word, consideration may be understood in some value again in exchange for a promise. Okay, according to Panchamam Das, the Calcutta High Court observed that consideration is a piece of a promise of a return or quid pro quo. It's a quid pro quo, something of value received by the promisee as inducement of the promise. So, if you're buying something inconsiderate, you have to give something. Okay, some money, some value. So, that is consideration. What is a void agreement is the question. Void contract is formal agreement that is effectively illegal and unenforceable from the moment it is created. So, a void contract differs from voidable. Voidable may have the chances of both to be nullified and even to be given as a valid one due to some of the reason, but a contract which is void is completely illegal from the moment it was agreed to start. After that, define contract of sale. So, a contract of sale of a good is a contract whereby the seller transfer or agrees to transfer the property to goods to the buyer for a price. A contract of sale may be absolute or conditional. It includes both a sale and an agreement to sell. So, that is all is a contract of sale. What is the next question after this is the objective of completion act. The objective of Competition Act 2002, it is the act aims to establish the legal framework and mechanism necessary to ensure that competition policies are followed, to prevent anti-competitive conduct and to punish those who do so. The act safeguards free and fair competition as well as trade freedom. So this is the objective of a competition act, and the act is as per the year 2002. Okay, to prevent the anti-competitiveness and to punish them if they do so. So the next question is, what are the consumer redressal agencies? The act provides for a three-tier consumer dispute redressal agencies. These are District Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission in the district, State Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission at the state level, and the National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission at the national level. So we are having district level, state level and national level consumer dispute redressal agencies. Now we'll discuss what is FEMA, FEMA. So FEMA is the Foreign Exchange Management Act initiated in 1999. FEMA is an act of Parliament of India. It is majorly initiated to amend the law relating to foreign exchange and with the object to facilitate external trade and payment and for promoting the orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange market in India. It's to promote export trade and smooth payment and transactions while exporting the product. So that is why they introduced a FEMA. So what are cyber laws? So first of all, we need to understand what is cyber law. So cyber law is a term used to describe the legal issue related to the use of communication technology, particularly cyberspace. Example, internet. So what are the cyber law? We need to give some examples like copyright, patent, dispute, contract, privacy. That all comes under the cyber law. Okay, if we understand cyber law with some examples, the same again. So it is the intellectual property distribution. So what are the cyber law types of cyber law? Is fraud, we need to defamation, freedom of speech, trade secrets, copyrights. So that all comes under the type of cyber law. We should not do any fraud, we should not stalk somebody, we should not defame anyone. So that all comes under the cyber law types. Now let's move on to discuss the section B, which is answer any three questions. So first one is distinction between coercion and undue influence. So coercion and undue influence is that First of all, we need to understand the nature of action. Coercion is the physical force or threat the aggrieved party is compelled to make the contract against their own will, that is coercion. Voluntary, he has not entered into the contract, he has been forced. Undue influence, it involves moral or mental pressure. So that is undue influence. Involvement of criminal action, it involves committing or threatening to commit an act forbidden by Indian Penal Code, or detaining or threatening to detain property unlawfully. So, undue influence, no such illegal act is committed or a threat is given. Relationship between parties, it is not necessary that there must be some sort of relationship. It is not necessary that there should be some part of relationship when it comes to coercion. But for the influence, there should be a kind of a relationship between the party is absolutely necessary. Exercised by whom? Coercion need not proceed from the promiser, nor need it to be directed against the promiser. It can be used even by a stranger to the contract. But undue influence is always exercised between parties to the contract. Enforceability. So, okay, like how we watch in movies and all, they will keep on pressurizing, or they will threat that we will kidnap your kids, like that they'll make them to enter into such contracts. That all comes under coercion, which is completely illegal. After coercion, we have exercised enforceability. The contract, what comes under enforceability is that the contract is voidable at the option of the party whom consent has been obtained by the coercion. Where the consent is induced by undue influence, the contract is either voidable, or the court may set it aside or enforce it in a modified form. So, what is the position of benefits received? In case of coercion, where the contract is rescinded by the aggrieved party, as per section 64, any benefit received has to be restored back to the other party. But in the undue influence, it is not so. Okay, the discretion to the direct the agreed party to return the benefit in whole or in part, or not to give any such discretions are there. So the undue influence chances are less, but the coercion is completely illegal. Discuss various rights and duties of buyer. So the rights and duties of a buyer is that to have delivery of the goods as per the contract, section 31 and 32. These are the right, okay, to respect the goods when they are not of the description, quality or quantity as specified as per the contract, section 37. To repudiate, to reject the goods when they are not of the description, to repudiate the contract when goods are delivered in installment without any agreement in the effect. So to be informed by the seller when the goods are to be sent by sea route, so that they may arrange by the they can arrange for the insurance. They should have the reasonable opportunity to examine. They should have reasonable opportunity to examine the goods for ascertaining whether they are in conformity with the contract as per the section 41. They sue the seller for the recovery of the price if already paid when the seller fails to deliver the goods. They can sue the seller for damages if the seller wrongly neglects or refuses to deliver the goods of the buyer. To sue the seller for specific performance, to sue the seller for damages for breach of a warranty, or for breach of a condition treated as breach of a warranty, to sue the seller the damage for the anticipatory breach of contract, to sue the seller for interest where there is a breach of contract on the part of the seller and price has been refunded to the buyer. Now, what are the duties of a buyer? To accept the delivery of goods when the seller is willing to make the delivery as per the contract. To pay the price, to pay the price in exchange for possession of the good. They have to apply for the delivery of the good. They demand delivery of the good at a reasonable hour. To accept delivery of the good in installment and pay for them in accordance with the contract. To bear the risk of deterioration in the course of transact when the goods are to be delivered at a place other than where they are sold. To inform the seller in case of the buyer refuses to accept or rejects the goods. After that, They need to inform the seller in case the buyer has refuses, and they have to deliver the good within a reasonable time. They have to pay the price where the property and the goods are passed to the buyer in accordance with the terms of the contract as per the section 55, and apart from that they have to pay the damages for non acceptance of goods. So these all are the rights and duties of buyer. Now the next question is, what are the rights of a consumer who can file a complaint under Consumer Protection Act? So the consumer has basic right of safety, right to information, right to choice, right to voice, and right to redress. It's to take legal action whatever harmed. So the basic rights is right to comfortability, security and safety, right to choice and product and service, right to receive true information about the product and service, right to complain and be heard, right to take protection and dispute settlement, right to be informed, right to served and treated without any discrimination, and right to seek compensation. Now, who and all has the authority to complain? A consumer has the authority to complain to Consumer Protection Act. Any voluntary consumer association registered under any law for the time being in force can also go and sue under the Consumer Protection Act. Central government or any state government, central authority, one or more consumer where there are numerous consumers having the same interest. In the event of a consumer's death, his legal hire or representative can complain. Okay, now let's discuss the next question. What are the objectives or features of FEMA? FEMA. So what are the objectives of FEMA is to facilitate the external trade and payment, to promote an orderly development and maintenance of the foreign exchange market in India, regulation of foreign capital India, to regulate employment, business and investment of non-residents. So these are the objectives of FEMA. We'll understand what is FEMA actually. A FEMA is nothing but a Foreign Exchange Management Act as per 1999, or in short it is called as FEMA, and has been introduced as a replacement for earlier Foreign Exchange Regulation Act FERA. FEMA came into act on the first day of June 2000, and an act is to consolidate and amend the law relating to foreign exchange with the objective of facilitating external trade and payments and to encourage more exports. What are the features of FEMA is to shift in object, and it's like government or RBI powers are clearly demarcated, and foreign exchange transactions are categorized under current and capital one. Provisions dependent on residential status. Residential status are on the basis of stay as well as purpose. Civil law is also added. No arrest, precaution to prove charges against any people who accused. Investigation and adjudication is completely divided and segregated. A new concept which is compounding introduced. So these all are the features of FEMA. Okay, now we'll move on and discuss to the section C. What are the different types of contract? So what are the types of contract? One is the mode of formation. So when they express, okay, that we will be partners, and when they express orally and they agree to it, so that kind of a contract is express contract. Implied contract is when you go to the restaurant, automatically you have entered into the contract. When you have board on the bus, automatically you have entered into the contract. So that kind of a contract are implied contract. Quasi contract and e-contract. So anything which you have entered into a contract online or through electronic manner, so that comes under e-contract. So quasi contract is what is the meaning of the quasi? It is almost or apparently, but not really. So it is the contract which is made by the government, made by the court, but not by the parties. After that, performance is a executed contract. It means which has already done. Executory, which about to execute. Partly executed and partly executory means half done and half more to complete. And unilateral contract and bilateral contract. So the unilateral involves one person of party. Bilateral involves one or more parties. So unilateral is something which is like offer is made and he completes the offer as per the request of the offerer. But the bilateral is when the offer is made, he promised to complete the offer as requested by the offerer. So unilateral is when you promise and the offerer completes it on a specified time, and the payment will be done after the specified occurrence. In the bilateral, it will be a mutual agreement. Okay, the promiser will agree, the offerer will request to the offeree, and the offeree will promise to complete it just because of the request of the offerer. Now validity or enforceability. Valid is a agreed contract and it is a legal contract. Void is it can be, it is an it is a like it is a void is it is completely when it comes to the court will completely say that when you initiated the contract, it was a complete wrong contract. So that is void contract. Voidable contract is as per the court, it can make it valid or it can make it void. Illegal is something which is completely prohibited by the government. Unenforceable is the coercion, when you pressurize somebody to enter into the contract without his or her consent. When the person enters into the contract, such is unenforceable contract. Certain contract in writing, which is written contract and agreed contracts. So these all are the various types of contracts. I hope this one helps. And after that, the next question is, who is an unpaid seller? Explain briefly the right of unpaid seller against the good. So who is an unpaid seller? Unpaid seller is a person who sells the goods for a price, and he has sold the product but he has still not got the payment. So such kind of a person has the right to get his price, or else he has the right to go against the buyer, and he has the rights to go get back the product. So definition of unpaid seller is that when whole or part of the price of goods has not been paid, in such case seller has to be called unpaid seller. Or when price of goods remain unpaid, then they, in a decided period of time, okay, as per the decided period of time, the seller has not paid the buyer has not paid the price of the product sold, so such person is called as the unpaid seller. So features of an unpaid seller. So the features of an unpaid seller is that seller must sell the goods on cash basis and must be unpaid either wholly or partly. After that, the decided price has expired and the price has not been paid to him. If the price is paid through a bill of exchange, he must not refuse to accept the payment when it was offered. Right of unpaid seller against goods, right of unpaid seller against the buyer. So first, right of unpaid seller against goods, it is right of possessions. So you can get the possession, or else you can go and sue to the buyer and you can demand for the price for the product and what and all the problems you are facing just because of not being unpaid, that one. The rights of an unpaid seller is that this right is available when the buyer becomes insolvent and when the buyer are in transit. Insolvency means failure to pay them. So the right is an extension of the right of lien. Their carrier may hold goods as an agent of the seller. If the carrier is holding good as an agent of the buyer, seller cannot exercise the right of stoppage in transit. If the carrier is holding goods in an independent capacity, the seller has the right to stoppage. Stoppage can be effected by taking possession or giving notice of stopping. Right of lien or stoppage in transit is not affected by any sale or peage which the buyer would have made unless the seller has assented to the same. So these all are the right to stoppage in transit. Okay. So the rights of an unpaid seller against the goods and against buyer. In against the good, where the property in goods has passed to the buyer, he can get the right to lien. right to stoppage of transition, and he has the right to sell the product back. And if it is against the buyer, when the property, so when the property in goods has not passed to the buyer, then he can withhold the delivery of the goods, and he can do the other remedies, like he can sue for price, he can sue for damage, and he can sue for interest. So these all are the rights of an unpaid seller against the goods and against the buyer, and against the goods what you need to write, and against the buyer also what you need to write. And what are the difference category comes under against to goods, that also you need to write, and against the buyer also you need to write. So it is the establishment of consumer dispute redressal agencies. So a consumer dispute redressal agency is forum to be known as the district forum established by the state government in each district of the state by notification. A state commissioner dispute redressal commission is to known as the state commission established by state government. What are its composition is that, so a person who is and has been qualified for a district judge shall can be the president, and other two member has to be there, and one should be a woman, and should not less than 35 years of age. So these all are the composition of district forum. Okay. So these all are the jurisdiction of the district forum, that the complaint shall be instituted in a district forum within a local limit of the jurisdiction, and the opposite party, so it should not, if there is more than one, then they have to voluntarily reside on business, they should have a personally work for gain. So this is all what you can write. Why? Because we have three tiers of district, state, and national commission of forums, where they have made jurisdictions, appeal, composition of the commission, everything it has been done. So this will all you need to write for the answers. For the Consumer Redressal Act, we need to write all of this. This is the next question, where you have to write about the objective of Environment Act, and these all are the answers which you need to write. Why? Because we need to discuss about the air pollution, noise pollution, thermal pollution, all kind of a pollution which is making for the because of that they initiated to maintain and to conserve and preserve nature and to reduce the pollution. The contract should be valid, and not only consent is necessary, and it should be free. It should be free from any kind of coercion, undue influence, so pressurization. So that is all considered as free consent. What is quasi contract? So quasi contract is something almost and apparently, but not really. It's like it is done by the court just to keep to protect the parties' interest to be safeguarded, and it is not by the mutual consent of the parties. So it is not contractual. It is obligation from the court. So that is quasi contract. In economic, goods and items that satisfy human wants and provide utility, so that are goods. And what is the price? It is the price, it is the money which is being paid for the consideration for the purchase or sale of a specified thing, so that is price. Okay. What is cartel? So cartel is an association of manufacturers or suppliers with the purpose of maintaining prices at a high level and restricting competition. So collusion or a cooperative arrangement between political parties intent to promote a mutual interest. So that is cartel. It is nothing but the association of manufacturers or suppliers. Who can file under the Copra Act 1986? So the answer we have already discussed: a consumer, voluntary consumers, or more than one or two consumers with the same interest, central government, state government, and they can be the people who can file complaint under Copra Act. So what do you mean by IPR? IPR is nothing but an intellectual property right. So the right given to a person over the creation of their minds. So such is the intellectual property rights. What is global warming? Climate change refers to long-term shift in temperature and weather patterns. So this shift may be natural, but since 1800 human activities has been the main driver of climate change because of coal, oil and gas, to which it has warmed, increased the temperature. So that is why it is called, it is called as global warming.